Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and this is the Brian's Optik 3 glove review. So huge thanks to Brian's for letting me take a look at this glove, as well as the blocker and the pads. I got a bunch of games on the ice with these, as well as behind my puck machine, so we got some testing there as well. They let me borrow one of their demo sets, so it's greatly appreciated so I could take a look at it and do this review. Now, a few things about this glove that I want to cover before we jump into anything. This is obviously not my spec glove. This is technically a game ready it has the stock single T, it has the boa strapping, which I wouldn't normally like. We'll go through all the specs on there, but this isn't a glove that I would normally order. I would have a few different specs on there, but we'll talk about the usage of this and everything because I have a pretty decent history with Optik gloves. I had the Optik 1, which I really liked. I had the Optik 2, which I thought was a solid improvement, and now here we are testing out the Optik 3. So I have a lot of history with this glove, and I wish I had my Optik 2 set to do a side-by-side. Unfortunately, I sold that because I didn't think this video was ever going to happen, and it did. So unfortunately, I don't have the two side-by-sides to compare what really changed with them, but we'll talk about my usage of this and how I feel about it. So obviously, first and foremost, the most important thing about goalie gear is the graphics. The graphics on this glove, like I mentioned on the blocker, are very, very polarizing. And just to be blunt, people absolutely hate them. I kind of get why. I go into the blocker video with a lot of details going on why you can't really separate sections and stuff like that. I've been really critical of companies in the past when you can't really match the blocker and the glove together. I actually think they did a pretty good job on this. Obviously, the blocker graphic is here, and the catching one matches basically the same going through. Now, with that said, in your stance, it is kind of upside down. You can see how in your stance, you have these kind of parts going down, and same with this glove, where the two pieces are going up there. So it doesn't really match exactly when it would be kind of in your stance. If you're like this, obviously it's upside down. If you're like this, it's still kind of upside down. But when you're in that blocking spot, which would be kind of like this, and both are like that, it does actually match pretty good. So I can't really complain and fault them in this sense because this glove does match. When you look at this and you can line it up just like this and you're in a blocking position, it's going to look pretty much the same. And I do like how they kind of went that graphic all the way through the thumb and everything, where some companies are kind of cutting it here. It's still going on there, so I got to give them credit for that. For the graphic itself, I'm not a fan of it, and I couldn't get any graphics on here really working that were not straight up like Transformer looking graphics. And that is obviously a personal preference thing, but I think the vast majority of feedback online is that they don't like this. I am not the biggest fan either. I think they could have done more things where you could do one of each of these sides instead of both. Same with over here. So should be able to do kind of this side is one thing, this side is the other. Instead, they're all kind of connected. So that's a bit of a limiting part there. But graphics really in the grand scheme of things aren't important for performance. So we'll actually jump into the actual glove itself. I've had people ask me over and over again of what socks I always recommend. And I've been using Cutshield for a while now. I have multiple stuff from them. So Cutshield is a company out of Canada that makes cut resistant socks. And these are their Pro Air 6, which means it's an anti-level 6 for cut resistance on here. They also make pretty awesome slash guards and wrist guards. You see them in the NHL a lot. Basically look for this gray material under players' gloves and under their elbow pads. And it's probably Cutshield. This version of it has an Evo shield piece in, so you have slash guard and it's skate cut resistant. This stuff is fantastic and I absolutely love it. I've been using it for a long time. Did a full review of it up there so you can check it out. But I now have a coupon code with Cutshield, so if you want to support the channel, you can check out the link in the description to Cutshield, buy some socks, which I think are honestly one of the better socks on the market. I absolutely love them. They're pretty thin and they are cut resistant and they're not too hot either. And I have no issues with these whatsoever on my custom skates where I need a really thin one. You can see how you can basically see my skin through them, so they are thin on here. And this part doesn't really feel or get that hot compared to some of those Kevlar socks. So I absolutely love this material. So check them out. I always recommend them. Use my coupon code. You get 25% off and it helps support the channel so I can keep making videos and making more content. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without buying anything, check out links in the description to Patreon, buy me a coffee. Everything through there comes again back into the channel so I can make more content and doing real reviews. So looking at the face of the glove, it is kind of pretty standard from what Optik stuff has been in the past. You have obviously your single cuff design or one piece cuff design here going into the thumb and similar fingers as well. And you still have that little angled piece here. So the cuff isn't totally flat. It is angled a bit, as you can see, and kind of angles inwards a bit there. And with this one, you do have that single T, which you can see over here. One thing this glove does use, same with the blocker and the pads, is this interesting gray, like venting mesh material thing here. They have it on the back and they have it here as well. Just an aesthetic piece that they use. Some people get that removed completely. I don't really mind it, but it is there, so I wanted to call that out. Going on to the backhand, you can see the padding. They have that finger guard right here and your kind of clamshell design here with, you can see how it kind of opens and adjust. You have multiple layers in there. It's decently padded enough for back there. It's nothing crazy, but it's like does a good enough job. I've never had a problems with Brian gloves before for that, but it is there, and you do have your fingertip guard as well there for a little bit extra padding. Going on to the backhand, how it opens, very standard Brian's. You have one strap here, which is that elastic, so it does stretch when you close it, which is always a nice thing, so that way it doesn't like restrict closing. So you can see it not really moving a lot. It can stretch if you had it like really tight. It will stretch a bit so it doesn't get anything stuck on there. Have another Velcro piece here to open it up this way, and then you have another Velcro piece right here as well to really open up the glove like that. So you can see how open this back design becomes, and it's pretty solid, and you can see how it kind of acts as kind of a clamshell, so it kind of can close in on itself. We get into the backhand, and you can see boa strapping. Obviously, again, I don't really like boa all that much. I had it on my first Optik set, and then I instantly stopped using it. After that, I used the normal materials, I believe, or else I wore it at one point and just wasn't a fan of it and went with the normal strapping. So I prefer normal strapping than boa. But how boa works, obviously, you have these kind of cords right here, and you have this system. You push it down, here's snap, and then you can tighten it just like that, and it tightens up instead of using a traditional snap. Now, like I mentioned, I don't like boa, but I have to give it a ton of credit, because when this is in there, it's like, honestly, you can do it with the fingers of your actual blocker on, which is really impressive. And you can obviously take that glove off and do it, but it's easier to adjust than even a lot of those pull ones, because if the pull ones don't have the right leverage point, you can't really pull it and it doesn't do much. For this, you just turn it and it tightens up all the way. Now, I've heard some people say they don't really feel any pressure points with boa. You definitely still feel it under here, and I can feel it like at the corners right here. So when you really do that tight, I can feel that pressure point kind of being right there. So maybe people just don't do it as tight as I did, but for me, I could always feel pressure points. Like you can feel it like right on there when using boa, and I wasn't just a huge fan of it. And you can see I almost wish this kind of came over more so there's more padding there, but again, I never did that one that tight anyways, and it wasn't really an issue. For their inner padding, I love Brian's how they do like this soft foam right here. It always feels really nice right there, and it kind of helps with pushing the cuff out a bit for presenting that, and gives extra padding behind the cuff itself. I love this air, like it's a hex foam thing that they use, and they use it back here. It's their like gray Nash that they've been using forever, but is really comfortable and it's really soft, and I love that being on there. It's kind of a, I'm going to say, common almost thing. I've seen it a lot on Brian's gear, and I'm a big fan of that. Back on this one, it's just a normal nylon, where this one has that gray stuff. So back here, it's just a nylon. It doesn't really feel uncomfortable or anything, but it isn't quite as nice as material as what is on back there. And then we have wonderful finger stalls, because Brian's understands people like finger stalls. So previously, I think some Brian's gloves didn't have finger stalls. I always opted to get them put on. So all of mine ended up having them in there, because I'm a huge fan of them. Because when you put your fingers in, it just acts as a nice piece to kind of give you some more leverage on there to fit a bit better. Plus they have this one, which is a traditional kind of pull piece for your pinky. They also have that loop on the thumb as well, so you can really tighten the thumb down if you want. You can see that loop in there. Finally, the material that they use on this is their Sure Grip, and I've talked about Sure Grip ad nauseum so far, and it is like a nice textured material. This material is not as textured and as grippy as the True stuff. The True is still like the best material for this. This is still solid though, and it would definitely be my choice when buying these gloves, but it's just not quite as textured and is quite as nice as that material that True is using, even though it's kind of the same idea. This one's just a little bit flatter. Now for this cuff, you can see how it's kind of pretty short and kind of open up there, and when you put it on, you can definitely see how open that is, and it does open up pretty good and it flexes pretty good. Now here's my one problem with this and with the boa system. The boa system gets in the way before the actual cuff does, and I noticed this wearing my warrior chest, that the boa system would just kind of get in the way of that arm piece before this did. So this was still fine, but this wasn't. So I had to try to loosen this as much as possible and kind of get my arm piece under it, and it still kind of got in the way. So I also tried to tighten it as much as possible, but it still got in the way. But it was like, you can see how it moves with your wrist a bit there. It was still kind of annoying too there, and it was like, honestly, if I had this glove and it came with this, I would honestly just probably cut that out because of that, just because it got in the way of my chest, and I don't really need that piece of the glove to be that tight. Like this cuff is really solid and does a good job of getting itself out of the way, when this part kind of doesn't really help with that and does get in the way a bit when you're trying to kind of move your hand around in a bigger style cuff. So for closure on this glove, Brian's doesn't give a direct angle comparison compared to other companies, and I've seen some people talk about this one being a certain way. The old Optik one had kind of 2 break angles where you could really close the glove in 2 different manners. So if you watch the T, you could close it in one way, and then if you watch the fingers, you could close it in the other way. So the T would basically be pretty substantial like that, or be pretty smooth. You can still kind of do it, but it's not the point of this glove anymore, and it doesn't really have a 2 break system on there. So this glove feels more like a 600-degree break type angle. So that would be like your 45, your 55, your 75 break angles from some other companies. You can close a lot of gloves in any angle, like any way you do from your finger to thumb, finger to palm type thing, but you can get an idea of how it closes and what really feels natural of a glove by just seeing how easy it is to close. So finger to thumb, so like this, so this would be like a 590 type thing. That's how it closes. So not great. It closes, but not great. Doing your kind of whole hand closure, a lot better and much more natural. So that is where this glove more or less feels like it closes more like at 600, 45, 75, 55 type thing, because it is kind of that whole glove kind of closes it like that. And again, if I do the other way, it's like that. And if you do like that to here, it's like that. But if you do like the whole hand, it closes like that. So you can see why I believe this glove is more of that type of break angle. So if you are like that 600 type person, this is probably the better option from Brian's for sure for you. And it is a pretty, I think, decent option overall. Now for closure on this isn't a Pro Palm. This is a game ready. And I'll have to say, when I got sent this, it closed even better. So I'm going to overlay a clip from when I got it originally. But for now, because I've been leaving it open and haven't closed it after every single game, closure on it is like that. It's pretty good. It's not unbelievably amazing like you see some of these glove closures, but that is because when this was sent to me, it was tied up. And Brian's has an awesome way of breaking in gloves where they have a machine that automatically pushes this open and close, open and close, open and close over and over again. And then they tie it up and send it to you. So this one was tied up like this. When I got it, obviously I untied it and let it sit and kind of sit open. And now you can see it is a bit stiffer than what it was before. You can kind of get it back to where this was when I was using this. It's been like a week since I've been able to play with this. I would keep it closed after, so I would air out the top, keep it closed, kind of sit it like that on my shelf, and I would put like a blocker on top of this so it would stay in this position, and then it closed and opened better and easier when I left it like that. So if you want this glove to close a little bit better than what you saw there, you can do that, and it works and is pretty easy overall. Onto this T, Brian's has a thing, and it kind of continues here where if you really squeeze this glove out, you can see where the T doesn't actually present itself all the way. And I showed this on previous, I think my Genetic 5 and 4 review. I think it's 5. And it happens here again, so you can see that. So this is eventually probably going to cause this, and we've seen it with Brian's gloves. I will say this piece does actually feel pretty thick. Normally when I order these gloves, I get the reinforced T's. I'm not sure if this is reinforced, but this one definitely feels thicker than what this one is, like this side. So maybe they're doing like a top reinforcement piece to try to beef that up a bit. But you can just see how that T kind of ends up going like that. And if you do open it all the way, it's definitely, if it's going to hit that, it's not going to go in, right? It's going to hit that, kind of go out there. You do want that kind of in more. So when you open that, the T is presenting itself kind of like this, just so that doesn't happen. Now, when you watch like slow-mos, and if you watch this get caught in slow-mo, it will 100% bend the T a lot like this. That's just how it happens and how gloves work. Gloves get deformed kind of when they catch pucks, but you're going to see that there too. Now, the other thing about the T, yes, it is a single T, and I have done some tests on them to see if I really notice a huge difference with pucks and stuff with double, single, and their tiny T, their anchor T. I don't notice a huge difference, honestly, using them. It's more of just what you kind of mentally prefer, and if like you want a specific aspect of one, you can go with it. I like how thick this is. Pucks are going to hit that. You're going to hear it. I kind of like that just from feedback perspective. It doesn't really make me catch any better. I just like the sound of it. It's satisfying. I'd probably go with this T in the future if I did a Brian's glove, but you can see how thick it is, and it is that one piece kind of T design. Now, the other thing about the T that I noticed, and it has honestly caused some issues, is it almost feels like it's inset more. So with this cuff and with the fingers, you can see if you put it straight down, you're going to kind of get a gap, and this has led to pucks coming out, which I'll show right now. One thing that was very surprising about this glove that I've never noticed with my previous Optik gloves, and I've had the 1 and 2, is this. It's really bad how much that T comes off the ground, and you can see it when it's like this, of how much that T comes off. So yes, you can do this to pull it back, but then the whole piece back there goes. And I've showed this issue with recent gloves. The surprising and disappointing part of this glove is that I never had this issue with previous Optik gloves. So it almost feels like something with this T is kind of like just not tall enough, because when you put it down like this, you can see how much of it is over there and it just comes out. I've had a lot of problems using this glove. Yes, it's me demoing it, so it's not getting fully used to it, but me just trying to cover quickly like this, trying to pull it, and the puck just slides out from underneath. So that's a new thing I found on this glove where I never had that issues with previous Optik gloves. So I wanted to call that out. So I'm not sure what changed on this specific glove compared to some like the other ones I use, because when I did that on the other gloves, I never had pucks come out. But when you look at this, you can kind of see how it kind of rotates a lot more and kind of flips and flops. And I don't really remember that ever happening with my gloves before too. And I use an Optik 1 for a long time. I use an Optik 2 for a long time. I'm curious to see and trying to figure out what exactly it was here. This does, like you can see how round this is, but I never remember that ever really stopping. So I'm not sure if this is just like what's going on, but you can see how it kind of moves like that. It definitely before felt like it was a lot more stable in that spot. So interesting and kind of odd that that has happened, and that's where this is. Core Tech, which are Coreshorts, and people have heard of these before. They were labeled under Under Armour before. Now Bauer sells hockey specific one, but Core themselves sell their own line of pants and supportive clothing and apparel. Basically, this stuff helps you with growing strains, growing pulls, and helps keep your hips tight and everything like that. And speaking of injuries, I kind of pulled a growing playing in the playoffs a few months ago and have had to keep using these Core Tech shorts to make sure my growing doesn't get worse. When I don't wear them, I can feel it and it hurts kind of to walk the next day. With these, keeps everything nice and tight and keeps everything from stretching out too far and getting injured. So these have been a huge savior for me. Check out the link in the description to their website and use my coupon code that's in there to get a discount, and I'll put it on the screen here. It helps support myself and the channel so I can make content and doing real reviews, but also you get a solid product that I use all the time. Again, I'll keep saying this over and over again. I'm not weighing gear anymore because people just focus too much on weights rather than if the glove is well balanced and feels good. A lot of the weight on this glove feels where you expect it. It's kind of here. So when you're using it, it feels solid and it's not too tippy or anything. And honestly, there's not a ton of weight up here. It's more in the fingers, so it doesn't really feel like it tips over and it doesn't get tired. It feels great to use. It feels balanced and it feels solid overall. And I have zero complaints with it, and it feels good. And even though that this isn't a Pro Palm, it is pretty protective, and I never really had massive issues with it. Tried it on the puck machine to feel that, as well as just using it in games. Didn't really have any issues with it, so I was pretty satisfied with that. And again, this is not a Pro Palm, and usually I go that Pro Palm route, so I was pretty happy with that overall and pretty impressed with it. So I want to talk about overall shape of this glove. And I found this one to be like pretty solid, and I found that even though you can kind of see how the fingers kind of come down a bit, I've noticed that a lot on Brian's gloves in the past. I never noticed issues with it when trying to catch in terms of getting it in the way of anything. I feel like something has been done here because I definitely remember it in my Optik 2, but this one I noticed it a lot less. So I'm not sure if they really adjusted this. It kind of looks similar, but when I went in that position, I never noticed that this piece was really getting in the way when I reached out, but maybe it was just on the angles, and when you kind of go more like this, it kind of gets in the way a bit. But I had no issues with it when using it in terms of catching for like blocking low down and stuff like that, and it was totally fine with that, as well as it feels pretty good in RVH as well. And then for reaching with this glove, I find it does a pretty good job of being able to get down when you kind of go out here. The fingers don't really get in the way or anything, so you can see like stretching, that finger doesn't kind of get in the way like this at all. It kind of goes down and like that. So I'm a pretty big fan of that. And same with blocking, it feels very comfortable and natural, kind of getting in that blocking spot and trying to kind of get in the way of things. So everything there has worked very well. For this glove shape as well, I've talked about in the past how Brian's gloves have had pretty flat fingers. This one isn't that flat overall, and I wish I had my Optik 2 to really see it, but you can see how this is a lot more scooped. So you can see how like this isn't just a totally flat piece down here, and it does have more of a kind of a curved angle to it. So my genetic one was totally flat on there, and that one is definitely a lot more scooped in a more kind of traditional glove shape. And you do have a pretty aggressive thumb. Even when you flatten this out pretty much, this is still a pretty good angle on there, and it doesn't feel like it sits totally flat like some other gloves do. You can't really open that anymore. It more just like sits like that, and then it does have a decent angle into there. So on to catching for this glove. This is a case where I need to use this glove a lot more in order to get used to it, just because Brian's are are slightly unique gloves in terms of just how they feel and kind of their overall shapes. It can take a lot to get adjusted to a glove, especially when I'm using 590s a lot recently because I've been using the PX3 and the Hyperlight 2. That this one, I just honestly couldn't catch a ton with it, and it's all my fault. I'm not blaming the glove on this. I had success in the past with Brian's Optik gloves. Break angle and stuff hasn't really changed a whole lot there. I'm just missing them, and they're just hitting on here and hitting on here or hitting down here, and I'm not squeezing fast enough. It's more of me than anything else, so I can't fault the glove for that. And while I had issues with catching this, and I blame mostly myself for that for this glove, definitely doesn't feel like it's one of those gloves though that will push everything into the pocket, where stuff in here really didn't feel like it was instantly going into the pocket. It felt like it was more bouncing out, but nothing just funneled in there all the time. And I didn't really make many catches where I was surprised I caught them. I had to make sure I caught them to really catch them. One thing I always found pretty good with this glove though is trapping in the body. I've never really had problems coming in tight and kind of squeezing it in there and the puck staying in there. The thing opens up pretty good, so even if you do keep it closed overnight and you just basically and you crush it on your pad to open it up, whenever you pull that in, I found it does a pretty good job of kind of basket catching anything in there and holding onto it that way. So I never really had issues with that either. So that's about it for the Optik 3 catching glove review. Overall, I would generally say this is a pretty solid option for the 600 break type people, but that T is really bothering me, to be honest. With that T seal, I've noticed it a bunch in games. I don't remember it happening before, so I'm really curious to see what happened on this compared to the other ones in terms of that. Overall, it's a pretty solid option. It has pretty decent protection for a game ready glove. Quality is obviously going to be pretty good because it's Brian's and they've been solid with that, and materials and everything feel pretty solid, and I don't hate the whole glove shape and all of that. So it should be a really good package, but that T seal has me kind of a little bit worried there and kind of hesitant a bit, where I'm kind of like, well, I don't want to see that happening to other people. So I'm curious to see if other people have that issue. If you have an Optik 3 and you have any issues with it, please let me know in the comments. If you have an Optik 3 and you have success with it, please let me know in the comments, because it'd be much easier for me to recommend this if the T issue isn't a thing. And the T is so far off, like the ice, it's not just like you have to figure out which way to go. I couldn't get it sealed even when I was pushing down. So it just wasn't great, and I couldn't lock it down on the ice, where like if I use a different glove, I kind of get an idea of it. When like those true 590s, I kind of work with it and know, yeah, I have to do this. With this one, even when I was thinking about it, I just couldn't get it down there. So it was disappointing to me in that sense. So thank you very much for Brian's for letting me review this glove. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful. If you want to see me review more gear like the Iconic line and stuff like that, please let companies know. Reach out to them on social media and say, hey, I want to see hockey reviews, review your stuff. It'd be greatly appreciated. Gets me on their radar, so hopefully I can do more videos like this and make more content. Thank you very much for watching this video. Remember to subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Links are in the description. If you want to support the channel and you live in Canada or United States and you're buying hockey equipment anyways, check out the links in the description. If you're in Canada, 2 Hockey Supremacy. If you're in the US, 2 Pure Hockey. Clicking those links, making a purchase gives me a kickback, helps support the channel so I can making more videos and doing more reviews. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.